In the next video, we're going to load Viptela images into this lab for the first time. It's important to note that the process for implementing these images is exactly the same, regardless of the vendor. In other words, it doesn't matter to me if Eve is installed on bare metal, on VMware Workstation, or in the cloud. The procedure is exactly the same. So, we create the lab and give it any name. You can add more information if you want. Personally, I like to keep the dark mode, but you can switch to light mode, which is the default. Well, it's up to each person's preference. And let's get started. Here on the left side, you have the different options. For me, to keep things simple, I just right-click, Add Node, and if you notice, there are a lot of templates from different vendors, but they're all grayed out. In other words, the templates that come preloaded in specific folders are there, but we don't have any images preloaded. Basically, what we're going to do in this video, and we're going to focus on these devices that are related to Cisco sdwan, the controllers. In another video, we'll talk about the Catalyst 8000s, the CSRs, some legacy routers, and so on. But this time, Viptela. So, we're going to make a demo plan. It could be for the vBond or for the vManage, because the difference there is that you add an extra disk. The key to successfully loading these images, as I mentioned in the previous video, is to follow the step-by-step guide. What we need to do as a prerequisite is have the images for the different components preloaded. It's also necessary to have an FTP server to be able to transfer the image from our computer to Eve. And then, we can start creating the folders and all that, right? Let's follow the guide. Here, we're basically going to do this for vBond, and it's worth noting that the vBond image is the same as the vEdge cloud. It's exactly the same, unlike vSmart or vManage. So, what we need to do is create this folder called vBond with the specific version. In this case, we're going to work with version 20.12.5, which is relatively new, and in this particular folder, we'll then rename it with a specific name called virtuab vQco2. Okay, so, I'm going to quickly go over here to the Eve console. I'm going to log in with the credentials we created earlier, and what I need to do is create this folder. vBond 20.12.5. I'm going to head over there. Right now, I don't have anything created or uploaded. What I need to do now is open FileZilla. Here, I have to enter the IP address where I connect to Eve, with the corresponding root credentials and port 22. I give you yes. There it is. So now I'm going to navigate to the folder, which would be OPT, ANETLab, Add-ons, QEMU, and here I have the folder. On the left side, I just need to locate the image I already have preloaded. As I mentioned earlier, we said it was the Edge 12.5, so I send it over here. We wait for it to transfer. We have it now, and I go back to the guide, and here it says that we need to rename it, the name. The virtuab vQco2, which is how Eve will recognize it in order to implement it. I'm going to go back here to this part, and I'm going to name it over virtuab vQco2. Let's check that it's correct. Done, we have it now. There it is. It's a version that weighs about 400 megabytes, and I think with this, we're all set. The only thing we have to do is go back to the lab, hit refresh, always important. And now, let's add a node again and look for. Here is the vBond. We have it now, it's been recognized. Here's the version we uploaded. You can change the icon, you can, give the node more capacity, however you want. In this case, I'm going to leave it like this for demonstration purposes. I'm going to click Save and we'll power it on. And after turning it on, we'll access it through the CLI. And there it is. It's starting up. Everything's good. Let's wait for it to load. This is now part of the Viptela operating system. But to do this in parallel, let's add the vManage now. Just to make sure we don't have the vManage image installed, let's go to Node, look for vManage, and we see that it's grayed out, which means it hasn't been uploaded yet. What we need to do is follow the procedure in the guide for vManage. So, let's go to the guide, scroll down to the vManage section, and we see that the steps are almost exactly the same. That is, we create the folder with the corresponding version, transfer the previously downloaded image from our machine to Eve. Then what we're going to do is rename this file with the appropriate template. And something important that we didn't do with vBond is create a secondary disk. And finally, set the permissions. Let's do that. Here it tells you that you need to connect to Eve via SSH. We already saw that we did it directly through VMware. So let's go over there. Let's log in. And what we need to do is create that folder. mkdir. The vManage version has to be the same as the vBond version for compatibility reasons. It wouldn't make sense to start building a lab with different versions on the controllers. So, we create it. We go over there, and we can see that we don't have anything uploaded yet. As I mentioned, I already have the vManage image downloaded on my machine. All I have to do is transfer it to Eve using FileZilla. Let's go to FileZilla. Here on the left side, I can see the vManage image already downloaded. Let's look for it. Here it is, the 2012-5. And basically, what we have to do here is, actually, let's refresh so the folder shows up. Here it is. And all we have to do is transfer it from the left side to the right side. Here it is, 4.7 gigabytes. After that, what we need to do is rename it with the corresponding template name. Let's check again. There it is with the correct name, 4.7 gigabytes. We haven't changed the size. So then, if we go to the guide, we can see that we need to create the secondary disk. Let's do it. We create it. We have to go to the root and finally grant the corresponding permissions. Done, we've got it. Let's go to Eve and refresh the topology. And now, let's try adding the vManage. Here we can already see it in blue, which means we should be able to add it. Here we are with version 20.12.5, which is the only one we have. We can customize it, as I mentioned before. We're going to leave everything exactly the same and click Save. Okay, let's open the console and wait a moment for the prompt to appear. Something important that I forgot to mention. If you remember in the previous video, the Eve image was created with a certain amount of RAM, 16 gigabytes if I'm not mistaken. It's important to remember that these images, even though they didn't cause any issues when starting up, the vManage actually requires more resources than the vBond, for example, or even the vSmart. So if I go here to the Eve guide, we can see here in red letters that it tells you how many gigabytes you need at a minimum for certain versions of the manager so that they can run properly. So one of the common problems I've come across is that the version we're running, for example 20.12 or later, doesn't have the necessary resources, and suddenly if I want to start up the VM, or in this case the vManage, it won't let me. In other words, it turns on, but then it immediately shuts off, or it just doesn't turn on at all. And if it does manage to turn on, like in this case, it's possible that the services might not start up correctly. So, be careful with that. As I was saying, you need to follow the steps very carefully so that we don't run into these kinds of problems.